Hi, I'm Dave Dewalt, and for the last 20 years I've been helping food service manufacturers move the needle on top line and bottom line growth by working in the areas where supply chain realities intersect with marketing and sales realities, or perhaps a better word is where they collide with marketing and sales realities. I found that it's hard to get supply chain, marketing, and sales people to agree on much of anything, but once you do an analysis that spells out exactly where the opportunities are, it becomes pretty easy to get everyone on the same page and pulling in the same direction as far as moving that needle on top line and bottom line growth. Most of our projects start out with a total fulfillment cost analysis of the manufacturer's business, where we go in and break out very specifically what it costs per pound to fill orders based on that manufacturer's price brackets or weight brackets. And once you've done that analysis, what starts to become pretty clear is how you can adjust the price structure, be it bracket definitions or bracket premiums, and order policies such as minimums in order to build revenue. We also find ways to incent customers to order in more cost-effective manners for the manufacturer. We help manufacturers optimize the redistribution program to make sure it's fitting in the right place in their overall strategy and they're getting the most from it, and reduce their overall fulfillment costs. And as a result, we quickly are able to help manufacturers improve the bottom line revenue and top line growth. In this first program, we're going to show you how we break down a year's worth of shipment and freight cost data to develop an understanding of the volume and fulfillment costs associated with business being done in the various order sizes. We find that most supply chain people have a solid grasp of their overall costs to move products from plants to forward DCs, to warehouse them, and turn around and ship them out to customers. And everyone, including sales and marketing, has a pretty good idea that small orders cost more to fulfill than large orders. But when we ask how much volume goes out in various weight brackets and what it costs to fulfill orders in each bracket, we quickly get into speculation and guesswork. Yet it's this level of detail that is absolutely required in order to reveal the opportunities to optimize customer order patterns and build bottom line profits. Because whether you use national bracketed delivered pricing or an FOB plus freight matrix or some type of hybrid pricing, a rational link between your prices, policies, and fulfillment costs will allow you to maximize profit as well as accurately predict the impact of any future changes. Now, what do we mean by total fulfillment cost? Well, there are probably dozens of cost drivers that fall under the umbrella of fulfillment, but the vast majority of your costs will be in four buckets: order management costs, deployment costs, warehousing costs, and customer freight costs. Let's take a look at how each of these costs can change based on the size of the order being filled. Order management costs are basically the front-end cost of receiving an order and getting it into your system, and the back-end cost of billing and collecting. They can also include the cost of preparing pick tickets, bills of lading, and other logistics paperwork, but generally we look at the order entry and billing departments to quantify this cost. In most cases, the order management cost to process an order is the same for a truckload order as it is for an order of 1 or 2 pallets. So we calculate an order management cost per order as a starting place. Let's say your order management cost works out to $25 per order. On a 25,000 pound order, that's only 1/10 cent per pound or a penny per case. But on a 250 pound order, $25 works out to 10 cents a pound or $1 per 10 pound case just to process the order. Next, let's look at deployment costs or replenishment costs. This is the cost of moving product from plants to forward DCs, or from plants to other plants, or DCs to DCs, anytime you're moving product other than shipping it to a customer. Our model assigns this cost equally across all of the order sizes because deployment costs are incurred before the product is actually picked and shipped. But it's important to understand deployment costs if you want to develop effective plant pickup programs or differing FOB prices based on different distribution centers. Warehousing costs are another area where we break out costs by order size. There are a zillion ways to account for warehousing costs, but the broadest cut is to separate storage costs from handling costs. In our methodology, storage costs are the same for all order sizes, but handling costs are higher for small orders because they require a higher degree of case picking and pallet building. We found that the cost per case to pick an individual case is about 2.5 to 4 times the cost per case to load a full pallet on a truck. So when we calculate or estimate the amount of case pick activity required in each weight bracket, we can assign appropriate warehouse handling costs to each bracket. Finally, we have customer freight cost. Customer freight is generally the single largest driver of your total fulfillment cost, and is also the largest driver of the increase in cost as you go from truckload orders to smaller and smaller orders. If you use LTL carriers to fill small orders, you're certainly paying a higher rate per pound than you do for truckload carriers. But even if you're using pooled truckloads to deliver several small orders, the costs are generally significantly higher, in part because of all the accessorial costs such as out-of-route miles and stop fees that are added on to extra orders. So these four costs make up your total fulfillment cost, and three of the four drive the increase in total fulfillment cost per pound as you move from truckload orders to smaller and smaller orders. Now let's look at an example of our TFC analysis. We analyzed 12 months worth of shipment volume and cost data to create this look, which of course is customized to match the weight brackets or the FOB freight matrix brackets used by the individual manufacturers. With this chart, we show the volume that went out in each bracket, as well as the number of orders processed in each bracket. You know, when we do these projects, we often hear, we used to have a small order problem, but we really tightened up our enforcement of policies last year, and we hardly ever ship any less than minimum orders anymore. But then when we get into the data, we invariably find a surprising amount of volume shipped in very small orders. And it raises questions about why are we doing this? Who are the customers? Often, that volume includes back orders and makeups for missed shipments on behalf of the manufacturer, which are certainly justified, but we also find a lot that really are a surprise to the manufacturer. So it always leads to an interesting conversation between the supply chain, marketing, and salespeople. We'll have more to say about that issue in a future program. I also mentioned earlier that everyone sort of knows that small orders cost more per pound or per case than large orders. And likewise, everyone sort of knows that the 80-20 rule applies and there's a lot of activity involved in filling a lot of small orders. But like everything else, when we quantify the amount of POs, bills of lading, warehouse and shipping documents, dock time, billing and collecting that take place in minimum and below minimum brackets with very little volume to show for it, people realize that they're laboring like an elephant to give birth to a mouse. In this example, there are approximately 1,800 orders in these smallest brackets out of 3,400 total. So well over 50% of the activity is going to generate less than 25% of the overall volume. So again, once people see the real numbers, they begin to appreciate the idea of higher minimums and perhaps moving more of this volume to redistribution. Once we've established the shipped volume in each bracket, we overlay the customer freight cost per pound for each bracket. This is a very typical pattern, with smallest orders costing 3 to 4 times as much per pound as truckload orders. And from here, it's a simple matter to lay in the order management, deployment, and warehousing costs to show the total fulfillment cost per pound associated with orders in each bracket. This TFC analysis allows our clients to clearly understand what order sizes and which customers are driving their activities and costs, and begin to see opportunities to adjust brackets, prices, and policies to cover their costs and influence customer order behavior. If you've never done this type of analysis, you should try it because it will be an eye-opener for sales and marketing, and probably supply chain as well. It will also establish a baseline against which you can measure the results of your initiatives. And if you have done something like this in the past, I suggest that you ought to update it at least annually, because everything does change over time. In future programs, we're going to show how we overlay the manufacturer's price structure to understand how well prices align with these costs across brackets, and also how this analysis helps manufacturers to fine-tune their redistribution programs. I invite you to watch all of our video programs on YouTube and visit my website. And I certainly invite you to subscribe to my Stirring the Pot newsletter, in which we address a lot of topics around food service supply chain, sales, marketing, brokers, pricing, and a lot of related topics. If you subscribe, you also get access to my library of back issues, which has hundreds of commentaries over the last 10 or 12 years written on all of these topics. And finally, if you'd like to kick around any issues around your food service business, please feel free to call or email me anytime. There's no charge for just talking on the phone. It'll be my pleasure to get acquainted. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll be back in touch soon.